As I introduced last week, this week I want to continue to explore the role of the ombuds and particularly the organizational. I'm going to talk a little bit more about my research with IOA. For those of you who have studied with me in 504 or 503, you have worked with my interactive curriculum workbook, and you have seen several real-world case studies where justice has been catalyzed within very toxic organizations, as well as a very troubled community. I am not going to be able to share everything that's in that workbook, that collection of case studies, with you in this course. But if some of you are interested, I would encourage you to get a copy of that workbook, available Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, elsewhere. And I'll happily, answer questions as you work with this workbook. You might also want to consider taking 503 with me in the future if you haven't yet had that course. For those of you who have, you will have studied many of the same ethics that apply to I'm going to refer to the organizational ombuds as the OO. They have basically the same ethics as most mediation codes. So the mediator ethics of confidentiality, impartiality, independence with no conflict of interest, these all apply to them. They'll be very familiar to you. When I decided to research and help IOA with their research, I approached several of their members. In fact, I think I was encouraged to send out my questionnaire to all of their members and received a very nice sampling from within the United States, around the world, and the various types of organizations that I introduced to you last week. I asked them about organizational power abuse, particularly when leaders were abusing power, lack of ethics in their agencies. And what I learned is that some of the most impressive, working with some of the most impressive organizations of the world, had become so frustrated with these dynamics within their organizations that they had even left their jobs. Not too, heartening for those of us who are attempting to tackle these problems. But honestly, in touch with the real world, we know that this is everywhere. And if it was easy to challenge and to correct and transform, we would see it much more often. Unfortunately, we need to be part of the group of people sharing what actually makes a difference, persisting in trying what makes a difference, and creating more real-world case studies of organizational transformation and success. Those who remain in their jobs do share success stories, and they do share specific skills that they use to tackle the most troubling and challenging of problems. And I will be sharing all the details in your reading. I'd like to share some highlights here. Some talk about a sixth sense, that they develop a kind of intuitive radar within an organization to figure out what's really going on behind the scenes. And it's interesting that my NCRP undergraduate students years ago asked me if I would help them develop their intuitive intelligence so that they could be more effective in NCRP. Brilliant, insightful. Not an easy request to respond to, though. And the writing in your reader is my first attempt at sharing my own life experience with having this sixth sense, this radar. And I will agree with my undergraduate NCRP students. Having a strong intuition has served me incredibly well in NCRP, particularly as I travel the world and work with a number of cultures where speaking openly and directly is not the way of communicating or information gathering. I welcome your feedback about the writing that I share because this is a work in progress and I really do want to respond to this request. It's an important one. One of the other things that these OO, internal organizational conflict resolution professionals, share is the power of their relationships. And once again, if you have used my interactive curriculum workbook, Holding These Truths, I have walked you through the steps of building these relationships, particularly the importance of trusted allies. And I include power allies, such as lawyers you can partner with, the organizational governing boards who sometimes need to be the trusted people to go to with information. Media is definitely what we do in modern times, but in my organizational community work, I definitely would start with the people within the organization first, because there's a lot of potential for response and change if you're willing to be strategic and build alliances. Now, if you can become a trusted advisor to the organizational leaders, there is a lot of power in that relationship because the OOs describe how they are able to, be the messenger who others might kill and destroy, but the trusted messenger of disturbing, troubling news to a leader because they have built a strong relationship of trust. So that's a way of empowering that organizational person. Again and again, they describe effective advocacy, negotiation, persuasion. What you hopefully studied in negotiation tactics, what you are learning to do in several of your NCRP courses. And I'm not going to go through all the details, but I'll tell you, if you truly have mastered the art of interest analysis from 522, you have mastered the heart of many effective persuasions in the world, deeply understanding and responding to your audience. Generating win-win alternative courses of action is another NCRP skill that they report. So much of what you are studying here is used by these people within their organizations. Of course, I've also mentioned they can do organizational conflict resolution education, they can do mediation, they can do a survey, a needs assessment of the organizational climate. They have many alternatives available to them as well. Now, some, sadly, are token. As I've mentioned before, they are part of organizations that are notoriously troubled with scandal after scandal, and they seem relatively powerless in the face of these horrible problems. But they have not had your NCRP education. So there is room in this world for you, if you get involved with IOA, for example, to get out and do NCRP workshops for this community. There's a lot of potential there. I think what I'd like to do in exploring more of what they report as their strategies and their success stories with real-world challenges, instead of lecturing to you more this week, I'd like to encourage you once again, as you do the reading, as you do the teaching and learning activities, please email me your questions. I'll happily join, and I try to join in your Blackboard discussions every week. But if you email me directly, I'll make a special effort. You can request that I come into your Blackboard group to tell you more and focus on what is of particular interest to you. Okay, enough for now. Have a great week.